All right, welcome to part 2 of this fast-paced coding in Flutter. Just do a quick review of what we did in the last video. We're essentially making a kind of like a grocery list sort of app. The intention is, just an easy way to organize your stuff based on sections of the grocery store so that when you actually go to get your groceries, you're not walking back and forth and being like, oh, I forgot that thing in the bakery section. So what we've kind of put together right now in our main.dart is just a very simple app. We have the home screen right now just as the list screen right here. And our list screen essentially has items, and those items are achieved through our service that we made. And right now it's just a mock data service. It's not actually calling an API, but we will get there. We have a mock, so this is kind of what our mock looks like, and it's very similar to how I think our API will look in the end. So this is basically just JSON data. In our service, we essentially are doing a delay to kind of emulate an API happening, 300 milliseconds in this case, before it actually returns the results. We have a model called a grocery item, which essentially just right now has an ID, a name, a category, and whether or not it's purchased. A few defaults there, and a few that are nullable. This is the first project that I've started with using null safety. I have one other project that I've, kind of migrated over. I wouldn't say fully, but this is kind of new to me, so just bear with me as many mistakes will probably be made. Our model, just has these items. One of the things is a custom model, actually an enum called category. That way we can work with them in a more intelligent and intuitive way. We have this map here. This is so that we can assume our API is going to be, referring to them as these words here. We want a way that we can kind of map these together, and we have these two helper functions to kind of go back and forth between those things. So pass in a string, get a category back, pass in a category, get a string back. So that's pretty straightforward. We also have a label, and all we're doing with the label is really calling this string function. We could have another map if we wanted. We could do something where we uppercase them, who knows, but this is totally fine for now, in my opinion. Oh, right. So a couple things we want to do. Let me just do a refresh here. So what I want to do is just kind of go with this idea of emulating the API a bit more. I'm actually going to make it 1 second, a 1 second delay. And you'll see here when it loads, it's kind of this 1 second of nothing happening. Now in the real world, it could be quicker than that, but it could also be slower. So it's nice to have some kind of progress indicator. So we are going to do that. That will be on our list screen here. Now, something I want to do actually even before that is although the list screen is pretty much just the list, there are some other things. We have obviously a title, we have this add button, we might add a contextual menu here or drawer. There might be some cool graphic, who knows. So I actually think we should break out we have the list screen, but I think we should have a grocery list as a component that we can use. So I'm gonna make a new file, grocery list.dart. And we will, for now, actually, let's just start right with a stateful component, so definitely be stateful. And we're going to call it grocery list. And we're getting a lot of errors, and that's because material is not imported. But there you go, material imported now. So we're good there. Let's just look at these kind of side by side to see what we need to do. Ultimately, we want this to return a list view, which I'm just going to grab here and actually replace this, write the word return, and have a ending semicolon. We have some things that obviously it doesn't have import yet, so let's import them now. We also have this thing called items, which I'll copy from over here, and we'll put it not in our build function, but as part of this. Okay, and then we want to have an init state as well. So essentially, we're just kind of moving, a bunch of things over because most of the screen functionality was actually powering the list, but I want to make something that we can reuse. We need to import the service, and there we go. So we shouldn't have any more errors here now. This won't change anything because we haven't actually imported our grocery list in yet. So rather than doing a body of a list view, let's now just make this a body of grocery list. and of course import it. So I'm just doing on a Mac. Control space is a great shortcut for, and it's not just a Flutter thing. It's in VS Code with a lot of Angular, whatever. So we'll just go grocery list, and I'm just going to hard refresh instead of just a hot reload, and you'll see, cool, it is still working. Now we're going to see in here that there's a lot of things we're not using anymore. So let's remove them. We don't need this import anymore. We don't need this. And in fact, we don't even need any of this. I'm just gonna, I like to add commas, kind of makes things clean up nicely. We also don't need these guys anymore. So this is now super simplified. Technically, this could now probably become a stateless widget instead of stateful, because there's nothing happening with state. There's no set state. There's nothing like that happening. But I'm going to just keep it like this for now, because I know there will be some things as we start to do stuff with this plus button. So we're not going to refactor it back, even though at this point it would totally be fine. Let me see if we can, there we go, just make it a bit cleaner. Okay, so a couple things we want to do here is we have items, and I'm actually going to make items null at first, and it's going to be, I think, the question mark there. The reason for that is what we're actually going to return here is if items does not, if items does not equal null, then we're going to do something there. Actually, let's do this a little bit differently so we can handle a few other things, and I think it'll be a little more straightforward. So let's do if items, if items equals null, let's just return a center with a child of circular progress indicator. Great. So if items is null, do that. If items.length is less than 1 or equal to 0, however you want to do it, we're going to return something that's kind of like, let's use the center again, child, and we'll just, for now, let's just do text, no items. We'll make that prettier at some point. I think this needs a, yeah, this is where, and I apologize for this, but sometimes I'm pretty new to handling this null safety stuff. Okay, you know what? Let's actually do this a little bit differently. I'm not going to make this nullable now. It's going to be instantiated as this, and we're actually going to have a new variable, and it's just going to be a Boolean, a bool of loading, and by default we will make it true, because when you come here we're obviously going to be loading. And what we'll do here is go, once we have it, we'll go loading equals false. Then instead of checking this, let's just check if loading. We will return that. If item.length, and let's just make it really obvious. If it's equal to 0, we'll have something that says no items. And then otherwise, we return what we did before. So now we get this nice spinner, and after, although because of the state change, I bet we have to do a refresh. So you'll see, boom, it spins, and it goes. Now, I want to make this, when you have no items, how can we test that right now? So one way we could do it we could just go to our service, and temporarily we could actually just, instead of returning that, we could just return an empty array. You'll see a dead code, obviously. So now if we refresh, we get this, no items. So let's play with that for a bit. I'm going to actually wrap this in a column. And we'll have text that says no items, and let's actually have an icon, icons dot alert or something, exclamation. I forget the material icons are great, but I always forget them. So that's why we go material icons, and we just go here. And this is a great search because the IntelliSense search, it's kind of, it's a less of a fuzzy search. It's not like looking for keywords. Here you can kind of type something like alert, and you'll see like things, yeah, alert's not even in that, but they've tagged things differently. So I'm going to let's just use the info one, icons.info, info. I don't know why that, icon Wait, no, this is right. I don't know why that's yellow in my thing. So we have that. Now what's happening, because we've put a column in center, a column will just take as much height as possible. So there's a few ways to do this. I believe probably in this case, if we just do main axis size dot min, it will no longer grow and we'll just keep it in the center. So that's good. And then after this, we will probably, if you have no items, what can we tell the user to do? Well, let's make an elevated button. And on pressed, we won't make that action yet, but the text will be add item. And now we get this lovely thing. Now we can make this an icon just by going elevated button.icon. Now, when it's .icon, it's no longer child, it's expecting a label. And of course, required in this would be an icon. And we would go icon, icons dot add. So we get this nice thing. Now we can probably put some padding maybe around this text. So let's just use the default 8. And I think that this text can be a little more large. Now at the one thing we were doing kind of at the end of the last video was working on theming. And this is just a convention I like. Again, I don't know if it's, I say the best approach, but I kind of just like having this global like CSS file. So what we can kind of do, we have body text, we have caption. Let's just see what, if we made it caption, for instance. And to do that, I can just go style, and theme text. That's just the name of my thing, and dot caption, and we get that little thing there. Now I don't think caption is actually the best thing here. Let's just do dot body text, and let's actually make this body text. Actually, let's do heading 6. I'm going to start with that, and we'll work our way backwards eventually as we need them. This can be size 18, and obviously we should change this over here. So then we got a slightly bigger thing. Font weight, let's make it a little bit more bold. No items. Cool. And then the only other thing is let's go into our icon and give it a color. Colors, actually let's use our theme. Theme colors dot primary. That way when we change it, it'll work. And I think it needs a size of maybe like 32. Yeah, I mean it's pretty all right here. Now the cool thing about colors is they're actually like a full object. So you can actually go primary.shade 900, for instance. That'll make it a bit darker, or 800, so on and so forth. And that's just a nice way to do things because we didn't actually cast a specific color. So if I actually changed our primary color over here to blue, which is like the default Flutter one, everything still works, but that's still like a darker one. Let's go back to our deep orange and let's just keep this like this. So obviously this button will do something and everything is good. Let us go back to our service before we forget and remove that temporary code we had, just so we actually get some stuff back. Now, because there is, this only happens on the state load, we need to refresh. All right, so we have our stuff here. Let's add a refresh indicator, because sometimes things, change and you need to just force an update. So we can do that in our list itself, which is what we've been working on here. And I believe, okay, so we want to wrap this in a widget. This is going to be reload indicate reload. Let me remember what it's called. I thought it was called, or refresh, I think. Refresh indicator, that's what we want. Okay, and then we need to have an on refresh, and I'm just gonna do this for now. Let's just, okay, so we're getting closer now, like I always have to do, Flutter refresh indicator, just so I can remember how to do it. So refresh indicator. Okay, so we have a key, we have a child, obviously, we already have that. On refresh, let's look for an example. On refresh. So let's just pass in this function called refresh data, which we are going to make. I believe it is a future void refresh data async, boom. Cool. And then refresh data. Now, where do they make this function? There we go. Perfect. So in our refresh data, so we're right now in our init, we are essentially doing some fun stuff here. What I want to do is actually move this into a new function called, we'll call it load data async, and we'll do everything there. And in our init, we're just going to call that. We might eventually want to do other things in our init, but that's the one thing we definitely want to do. Now, what we should actually do every time that we call load data, we're going to set loading equal to true because we're going to be loading stuff. Meaning we can actually set the default to false here. Because really, when we're not really loading anything until we say, hey, we're loading something. Then our refresh data, all we are going to actually call for now is load data. All right. So let's refresh that. Let's see if we get it. There we go. We got our thing, and that 1 second delay is because we have that that delay in our future in our service. So that's pretty sweet. We'll be able to make all this stuff work really well. Okay, next thing I would like to do is we have this this object that we made for empty items. So I'm going to create a component called empty list.dart, empty list indicator. It's not really a list, it's just the indication of it. So we'll call it that. And we'll make this a stateless widget, and we'll call it empty list indicator. So we could, completely do it this way, and that's all fine. I'm going to show you a quick shortcut though. I'm just going to go like this. And what we can actually do is extract, do I want the center included? No, I don't think I do. I think we just want it from the column. So we actually go, this is Control-Shift-R, so you click on what you want, Control-Shift-R, and you get these like awesome helpers. One of the helpers is extract widget, and we're going to give it a name called empty list indicator. And what that is going to do is actually pull, replace that with empty list indicator, and you'll see at the bottom of your file, you're going to get this this thing. So this is, basically just the same code from here, but it's its own widget now. Now what I'm going to do is actually move this to this file that we just made. And of course, we have to import a few things, our theme stuff. And let's just clean some stuff up here and save. Now over here, we're going to have an error because it's saying, I can't find this anymore because we just moved it. So let's just do our auto import, and boom, we are done. Okay, so yeah, nothing really changed there. And in order to test this, we kind of have to go back to our service and return no items so that it works, and we'll refresh. There we go, no items. Now we can make this a bit better, I think. Let's get rid of you. So what we can do is create a few things. Let's create a title. String title. We'll create a final string button text. Final string button icon, and final function on button pressed. And inside here, we're going to do some things. We're going to say this dot title, this dot button text, this dot button icon, and this dot on button pressed. Now, technically, because I'm making this so that we could reuse it in theory for other lists. Right now, it's obviously specific to items, but I want it to be a little more flexible. So we always need to have a title. So we're going to just make that required. However, I think these three can be optional because we don't always want a button. So let's just do with button text, button string, and on button pressed. We can do that, and then there's no longer required. And we got our null safety stuff working, and everything is great. I'm getting some errors over here, but I think it's because now it's expecting some stuff. But we'll get to that in a minute. So this, we want to obviously say widget. Oh, sorry, this isn't a stateless widget, so we actually just go title or this.title. Both are acceptable. I kind of like using this. It just makes it clear that this is a variable of the class as opposed to like a variable you made here called title. This.title, so we have that. Then we want to go and say if this dot button text, basically like we want to basically make sure all of these things are true. And we could, do it inline here, but I think this is a good place to just make something called has button. And that is going to be equal to this dot button text does not equal null, and this dot button or on button pressed does not equal null. So that's good. Now, that way we can kind of say if has button, do this button stuff. All right. Now you'll notice I did not ask about the icon, and I think that's because we can just set a default icon here. Icon, and in fact, sorry, button icon should not be a string. Button icon should be icon data, or yeah, icon data is fine. And then we can go icon data dot, icons dot. It's not finishing for me, but add. So now let's make this required, not required in the API in the interface, but required as in it'll never be null because we are setting a default if you don't override it. That way we don't really care about checking it here. And this, we want to actually make this say this dot button icon, and this will be this dot button text. Argument string can't be provided. Button text, and in fact, we just do an exclamation mark there. We know that this will never be null because has button requires button text not to be null. So I'll just put an exclamation mark there, and it should be safe. As for on pressed, we want to do this dot on button pressed. And similarly, the argument function cannot be assigned to the parameter void. This is where I get a little bit confused. The argument function cannot be. Okay. Let me see, can we do it this way? The default value of an offset variable must be a constant, right? Oops, sorry, equals. No, that's not gonna work. Okay, we'll get there in one sec. I do want this to be optional. Don't explicitly do null, yeah. Okay, on pressed. Let's just do this a little bit differently then. We can go if this dot on button pressed does not equal null. This dot on button pressed, because it can be null. See, this is the part of null safety that's a little bit confusing to me, because like obviously I'm checking ahead of time, and I feel like that's what the exclamation mark is for. So I think we can just do that, in which case like we should just be able to do this. We should, but it does not seem to like that. So we will do it this way, and eventually I'll find a better way. Okay, cool. So now we've kind of refactored this so that over here we can actually put some things in. And in this case, I can say title, no grocery items. And you'll see that looks great because the button's gone. And then we need to say, let's do button text, add item, and on button pressed. And we would, in theory, do something there. And just to see if this is working, let's do a print, hello. Make sure this is scrolled down, and we should be able to hit this and see hello. There you go. And we can get rid of that for now. Okay, so yeah, we've broken, broken up this little empty list indicator, which, if we have other lists in this app, we can totally reuse, and everything will be great. Okay, what do we want to do next? Well, let's get rid of this. Refresh. Boom. Boom. Okay, so we got some check marks happening here, and that's not doing anything because we don't have an API yet, but it's there. So let's let us, I think the next logical thing to do is allow us to create new items. So we already have this plus button here. So let's do something with that. I'm going to close a bunch of things, have some coffee. And we're going to make a new screen. New file called create grocery item. Maybe we'll just say add grocery item.dart. And we're going to make this we'll start with a stateless widget. We'll call this add grocery item. And I'm actually going to, rename it add grocery item screen because it's a screen. And to keep with that convention, let's rename our file to screen. Okay, awesome. And this is going to be a scaffold. It's going to have an app bar. It's going to have a title called title of text, create, or let's just say add item. Okay, that's good enough for now. Now we need to be able to invoke and show this screen. So there's a few different ways to do that, and I think for the simplicity of this app, we can get away with an easy way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is on this screen, we're going to create a function. It's going to be void handle add item and underscore there. And instead of just an empty function here, we're gonna, for some reason did not copy, handle add item, good. And I'm just gonna print add just to make sure stuff's working. Boom, boom, we're getting add there. Now, before we forget, we have another instance in our app of where we could add an item, right? So let's see that guy. If I refresh, we have this button here. So we need to make sure that clicking this will do the same thing. And we don't want to duplicate our code and have a bunch of logic in the same spot. So what we're actually going to do on our grocery list is we're going to have a final function handle. We'll call it handle add, and we will go required this dot handle add. And now we're going to see over here, there's an error because there's nothing to do handle add, and we want to pass in handle add item just as a reference. And let's just keep these actually a little more consistent because I forgot the name. Back here, we'll call this handle add item. All right, so now we got that function. That way, on here, on button pressed, we want to just do this dot handle, widget dot handle add item. And the reason you have to call widget is because when you're saying this, you're actually just referring to the list state, not the actual list. And widget is sort of this helper thing that allows you to talk to the essentially like the parent of it. So now, similarly, I should be able to click this and still get that add text, which we are actually doing in a couple components higher up. So there we go. Back to our service. remove this, refresh, boom, boom, boom. All right, so what we actually want to do in our list screen, our list screen here is show that. So the way we're going to do it is navigator dot of context dot push push named, and then we're going to pass in a route name. So a couple things to do here is we need to give this a route name. So the best way to do that is create a static const called route name and equal to, and I'm just going to call this add grocery item. It really doesn't, at the end of the day, matter what this is as long as it's unique, so that it doesn't get confused. So we have route name, and then we can go and we can actually say add grocery list screen dot route name. We call it, it's static, so you don't have to, we're not creating an instance of this, we're just talking to the class itself, the static thing, so that we have this here. Now, this will not just work out of the box. There's still one more thing we have to do. You'll see that there will be this major error here. Oh, I can't find it. So we have to kind of configure some routes. So in our main Dart, we will create some routes. And routes are essentially, not an array, they are a map. And we're going to start with just the home one, and that is going to be list screen. Except we don't pass it that way. We actually pass a builder function. So we pass context in, and we go like this. So that's one. The next one we want to do is obviously, grocery item list screen, and we'll import that. So we get rid of this error. And this obviously needs to be this guy here, but I'm not going to copy and paste that, because then if we change it, everything's going to get messed up. We can actually reference this route name as a key. So we can actually call this here and go dot route name. So that's essentially the same thing as copying and pasting whatever we call this add grocery item and putting it there, but it's referencing it, meaning I can change this anywhere. So we get this other error because it's saying like, hey, you have a home screen, but you also have routes. Like you can't have both of those together. And that kind of makes sense because we set our home screens here. All right. And then we can go like this, and you'll see we get brought to the add item. Now we might find in the future that this might be better to make as a modal or as like just kind of like a pop-up sort of thing than going to a whole screen, but I'm just trying to keep things simple. Okay. So we can get rid of our list screen, we can close our main.dart. And we can close that. And we can close this for now. And very good. So let's add grocery screen. Okay, so what we want to do is in our body of our scaffold, we are going to need a few different things here. Let's keep it really simple. Let's just start with a column because we obviously want multiple things in this screen. Let's go back here, and just to make sure stuff's working for no reason, because I know it will work, we get hello. Now I think this is going to need some padding, so let's just wrap the whole column in padding rather than wrapping each individual, and 8 seems to work well, so that looks pretty nice. We'll do our comma here so that we get the nice stuff there. And essentially, yeah, we got a few fun things to do here. We got to make a form. So let us do that. Okay, so the first thing we need is we're going to wrap, I think we're going to wrap the entire column in a form. Yeah, might as well. In fact, we could let's just go right to the top. Let's wrap this widget in a form. And form needs a key, and we need to create that key. To do that, it's a global key. We want that as part of our widget, global key. And in fact, you know what? Let me just make it, let's convert this now right to a stateful widget, because it is going to have to be stateful. We're going to be, doing things and showing errors and stuff. So we might as well just do it now. There we go. Okay, so key, and we need to create that key, and we're going to do it right here. We're going to say global, actually it can be final global key, form of type form state, and we'll call it form key, I think is fine. Oops, form key equals, and global key form state form key equals, and then we actually, sorry, just actually create global key form state. Because we're instantiating right here, we can technically actually just go final form key because it's going to infer the type. So let's just do that, and form key there. And that's so we can reference the whole entire form throughout this thing. So there we go. Now, inside this, there's going to be a few things we need. Let's start with just a text form field. And we're going to give it some decoration so that we can do stuff like labels and hints. Input, it's of type input decoration. And let's just give it a label text of item name or something. And we'll see now we have this, and the text form field sweet because it automatically has this like cool material, sort of stuff there. Now we generally, when I come here, probably the first thing I want to do is start typing in this, and that means, okay, I gotta click that and I gotta click here, but we can actually add a auto focus equaling to true, so that when this screen sort of comes, boom, you're already there and you're good to type. Now in the simulator, you don't see the keyboard by default unless you do Command K, but I just did Command K and now it will come up. So that's kind of handy. You can just start typing. Okay, so we have that. And we need a couple other things inside the text form field. So I'm good with a single line is fine. We need an onChanged event, and I'll just keep that empty for now. Although, wait, onChanged has a value. We need to at least pass that in, or I get errors. We also want to have a validator, which similarly needs value. And we don't need an initial value because we want it to be empty. If this was an edit screen, obviously we'd want an initial value, but this is a create new. Okay, so let's do the validator first. So basically, with anytime you do a save on the form, it's going to run the validators for each field. This value is whatever's in it. So we would want to go if value dot is empty, and we can return name item name is required. Receiver can be null. Wait, how can this be null? I guess we can go if value equals null or value is empty. I guess this isn't a null safe thing. I figured it would be. So that's what we can check. We could also check other things like, it has to have a capital letter, but obviously we don't want to do that. At the very end, if it didn't already return out of this, we're just going to return null. Okay. So we have that. Oh, right. Now, something I'd like to do, and honestly, it's not really for the simplicity of this app really required, but I'm just kind of trying to show how you can make really complex things, and how they will help in the long run. Like if this form had a lot of different stuff going on, a lot of different validators, a lot of different fields, doing it all within this file can get very cumbersome. So what I've been doing is we're going to create a whole new folder here called providers. And we're going to make a new file called, what was the name of this form? We're going to call this add grocery item form provider. It's really long, but it'll be worth it. And this is just a design decision that I like to use. It also allows us to kind of keep, if someone actually closed this by accident, the stuff will still be in memory, because we're actually going to handle dealing with all the intricacies of the form outside of this file in a provider. So what I like to use in general for state management, there's a lot of different things you can use: Redux, blocks, provider. So far we're using Riverpod, and I like using Riverpod for personally for like API services, like, that's what I basically use it for. But there's another provider-ish package, kind of like a Singleton package called Get It. And Get It, I think, is perfect for this kind of thing. So I'll just go to it real quick and we will look it up. And it's essentially a way to have like a singleton that's shared between your app that you can, save values in, you can do stuff with, and you don't have. There's only going to be of every get it instant of each get it class you essentially make. There's only one instance of it, so you're not going to have like weird stuff. So this is really good. I use this for like if you want to remember what the user's tokens are, like what the login state is, what just like generic like state management stuff that's not specific to a certain model. I think this is great. So let's just do it. This will be a bit overkill for this, but it's better to just do it right, I think. So we're adding our second dependency now, aside from Flutter, and I guess aside from Cupertino icons, which actually we don't even need. Okay, here we go. We're getting a incompatible version. This happens quite often. So Flutter test. I don't have Flutter. Oh, we do have Flutter test. One sec. We could probably just use a different version of Get It. I'm just going to go right back to just on another project I have. I use 6.0. We could, of course, figure out what where this problem really is. I'm not sure if that's a new error. Get it. I think no, I think we're good. I think that's the old error that's showing up. Well, we'll find out. So I've installed Get It. And the way I like to work with Get It, it's again a bit cumbersome, but I really, really like it. Just really simplifies things. What we're going to do is actually create an abstract class. So an abstract class is a class that you can't, doesn't really exist on its own. You need to then create another class to inherit it, but it's just a nice flow. And we're going to call this, and actually, I realize, let me just save, let's rename this. It's not really, it's kind of just the grocery item form. It's not the add grocery item form because we might want to allow editing with this form. There might be a bunch of stuff like that. So we're going to create an abstract class called grocery item form provider. And it is going to still extend what's called change notifier, which is actually just built into Flutter. So we have that. And in here, we are essentially going to have some fun stuff happening. So let's open up our model of the grocery item model. Just remember what's in it. So first of all, anytime we're making this form, we're going to want a reference to the grocery item that is being edited. And we're going to call that grocery item. Right? Cool. It's telling me there's an issue here because we haven't imported it. So we have that. Now this is going to be the first time I'm doing this approach with null safety, so bear with me. I also like to have, let's have a bool called is processing, and it's going to be equal to false by default. We also will keep track of our form state in here, so remember that that global key we made called form of type form state. I'm just going to call it form, and it is we're going to say it has a global key of type form state. So we have that. Now there's a problem here. We'll come back to that. So these are all going to be, because it underscores, these are things that will not be accessible outside of this class. They're private. And that's all good because we're going to create getters. So we're going to create a getter, get grocery item, like this. Now, I'm not actually, what I'm doing right now when I'm doing this abstract class, I'm not actually writing the code, the implementation. I'm kind of just telling, this is kind of like, I don't know if you've done like C. This is kind of like the header file we're making right now, where we're saying like these are all the things that this thing has access to. It's kind of like describing the API, and we're going to be writing an implementation after this. So we are going to have a getter for the item itself. We're going to have a getter for is processing, Notice the only difference here is, we're not using underscores. These will be publicly accessible things. And we obviously want a, and I'm just gonna copy this because I don't feel like typing it right now. Global key, form state, get, and we'll just say form instead of underscore form. So we have those awesome getters. We also are probably going to want some helper functions like clear, clear form, we'll call it. And we might eventually have something called load form, load item. Actually, let's keep with this clear item, load item. So being able to like pass in essentially a grocery item called item, we'll just call it. So I like this approach because you're kind of like thinking about, before you even start writing all the code, you're kind of thinking about what do I want to be able to do with this provider. And then obviously we are going to want to have something called save item. And technically, actually these will both, just thinking ahead, these will both be futures because they're not going to happen instantly. They are going to be asynchronous. So we'll just decorate them like that. And let's, because I like to keep, so let's organize this a bit. I like to do things like getters. Then we'll do something called operations, or methods. And then, well, really operations is what I actually would like to use here, because we're also going to have things called something for validation. And we'll have, we're going to have a string. We're basically making the validator for validate grocery. I'll just say validate name. Screw it. And it's going to, we're going to pass in a string of value. Okay, now I think that's pretty good. We'll come back to this error here. So we've created this, and what I actually now want to create is what's called the grocery item form provider implementation. So this is kind of like your .h file in C. This is your .m file, hm. Yeah, I think that's right. And what it is going to do, it's going to extend this guy. And what we can do is we can make a constructor, and a constructor in Dart is you just take the name of it and essentially go like this. And we probably, anytime this is instantiated, we would want to be calling this function called clear item, which I know this function doesn't actually exist yet, but it is there. Just so we create this, we know that everything is clear. We could also do other stuff in here too. Now, I think VS Code is going to help me with some stuff here. So I can actually, it's telling me some stuff like it's missing this implementation. So this is kind of cool, and I can actually just click quick fix and create these. So basically what it did is it created implementations for all these things. Now, they don't do anything, it's not going to write your code for you, but it made life a little bit easier for me. Okay, so clear item. Let us figure out, let's come back to clear item. Let's just start with form. So form, all it's going to do is return, and because of this arrow function it's already made, I don't even have to do that. I just have to go form. So this is kind of like a public private getter sort of thing. The reason that I am doing this, is I want to kind of like privately control this stuff, but have people access it just by saying form. Now it's just really a proxy to this. It's not doing anything special, but it would allow us in the future to be like, okay, anytime someone gets a form, let's, I don't know, like write an analytic, hey, this thing got this form, or do some validation without having to, change the implementation logic. So super handy. Same with this, we're just going to return grocery item. And in fact, I'm going to rename it because I think I'm going to rename it. Let's just get these other guys in. We're returning is processing. So same kind of thing. We could, we're just proxying, a public to a private, but we could have some other code in there. Load item. So in load item, we would actually want to go this dot grocery item, and we're going to always work with the private one, is going to be equal to item. And so that's pretty sweet. Now it's saying that, I think it's saying something about async. Let's just put async there. Now, this actually won't, no, this is not actually going to be an async function, because load item is like, we've already got the item in memory, whether it was from an API or whatever. We just want to load it into the form. So we can get rid of this, but obviously save will be asynchronous at some point when we have an API. Okay, so we got this. And I'm going to get rid of my to-dos that it automatically made for me. We'll come back to that one. Save item. Let's just keep it as a, throw unimplemented error, because I'm not ready to implement that anyways. Validate name. And this is the idea. This is if we open up our form, grocery item, grocery form. Oh, where is it? Right, it's called this. This is basically, I want the same logic here. So the validator is, we're validating the name, and we essentially want to return, and because according to this could be a nullable value, we should probably do this here. It can technically return null, and we have to go back up here and make that same, that same change. And we go like that. Okay, so we have some of the stuff here. Now, something else that's really important is we need to make sure, and I like to put this here, this is something that we don't even really expose, so doesn't have to be up here. I'm just going to make a void function called update or notify listeners. Or let's just call handle update. And what we're actually going to call is a function called notify listeners, which is part of change notifier. So we're able to call it, we could also just say this dot notify listeners. The reason, I could just call this in all the places I want, but I like to have it in one spot because there might be other logic we want to do anytime an update happens. In clear item, we want to go this, I know we haven't done this yet, but we always want to make sure after a state change happens, we are running this notify listeners. Same with save item. We can throw that. Yeah, it's when it throws. We'll just put that there so we don't forget. Validate name doesn't matter. We're not changing state. Load item we are, so we want to have that. And I think that's all right for now. Okay, a couple other things we need. So we have getters, operations, validation, and we'll just have something called values. So let's do something called set name. It's going to be a void function that returns nothing, but set name is going to take a string of name, and we want to say grocery item. Oh wait, sorry, I'm doing this wrong. We're just declaring it here. Then you'll see we got this this lovely error again saying it's not implemented, so we can just go like this and implement it. And essentially in here we want to say this dot grocery item, the private one, dot name equals name. Then we of course want to say this dot handle update so that stuff happens. Okay, so yeah, we haven't done the save yet. Clear item, I think we can do that. Let's just go, when we clear an item, we essentially want to, let's just make an item called new item, and it's going to be equal to a grocery item. Boom. Oops, grocery item. So we don't have a default constructor on that. Let's make a default constructor on it so that we can kind of like instantiate a new one easily. So grocery item model. So we have one like factory, but let's just do grocery item like this. And anytime that that we just call that, we need to set some things. So ID can be null, name will be blank, category. And in fact, we don't even have to do anything in here. I'm just gonna make like a to-do, maybe set some additional defaults here. But I don't know if we'll have to. So we have that. And then that allows us, anytime this is called, it's going to instantiate a new version. And because these are allowed to be null, it's totally fine, these two things. And when you have name is going to be set to this and purchase is going to be set to false. Okay, final new item. And then what we want to do is set. So we basically are making this new item. And then we are going to go this dot grocery item equals new item. So I'm just, rather than having two lines to do the same thing, we're just going to go like this. All right. Okay, so yeah, we still the non-implementation for save, but that's fine for now. We won't get to that right away. Okay, non-nullable instance field grocery item must be initialized. So let's just initialize it. And we can do that now because grocery item. So by default, we'll just do that, meaning like really in here, we're basically like we're instantiating it here, and then when this actually is first instantiated when the app builds up, we're kind of doing it again right here. So really, I think we don't necessarily need this. And it's telling us we can do whatever. So I'm just going to comment that out because we'll probably come back and be like, oh, we want to do some extra housekeeping in here, and I want it to look clean. Okay, so I think we've dealt with everything we need to on this service. Now, to actually work with this service, we're going to go to our main.dart. I know this is very long-winded and very much like, what is even the point of this? We're just trying to update a name and we need all this code, but I think you'll see that it's a pretty awesome workflow. Done it in quite a few apps, and I love it. So to implement this, we need to actually instantiate these. So what we actually do, and I just like to do this right at the top of my file. We're going to import something called getIt. Maybe getIt didn't actually install. No, wait. I guess it did not. Let's go back to our output. Let's just do a right over here, Flutter pub get. So I think there is possibly still an issue with our getIt. Let me just, maybe it's just having trouble finding it. Let's just try pasting this in. Okay, no, it did actually install. So I have package, it just wasn't really like auto finding it. So we have something called getIt, which we essentially do like that. And in my main function, before we even run the app, we are going to do, well, this is something that is missing that you eventually will need when your app gets more complex. This just, I think what this does is just make sure that everything is good to go before trying to do stuff, ensure initialized. Then I'm just gonna make a write a function here, or not, just call a function here called setup singletons, which we don't have. So let's make a void function called setup singletons. And this is where I guess the magic kind of happens. So we're going to take that thing we made called getIt, and that's just a reference to this guy here. And we're going to go register singleton. And what we pass in, well, before we do this, we want to say what kind of singleton it is. And in this case, it is this grocery item form provider, which we'll need to import. And the function itself takes two parameters. The first parameter is the implementation, and not a reference to it. You actually call it. You say, you're essentially passing in a function being executed, which gets this thing all hooked up and ready to go. And then signals ready true. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think it's just so that you can ensure things are ready. That's just how I've always done it. Maybe it makes no difference, but that's how I do it. And if we were to make more singletons, like we would copy and paste this and make a bunch. We only have one, but I imagine there will be more, and that's why I'm making a plural here and putting it in its own function. So with this, let's do a hard refresh here. So we're not really even working with this yet. So let's see if stuff's working. So we're gonna close things. So let's open up our provider that we made, and let's open up our screen, our add grocery screen. Okay, so what we want to do is we need a reference to this. And to get that, and I'm going to do this first, we're going to go final, and I'm just going to call it form provider in this case, because we know we're in the grocery item screen, like we know we're talking about grocery items. So form provider is going to be equal to get it. And this is interesting because what I'm actually doing is I'm importing get it from here, from our main. So it's just that one instance of it. We're not declaring another one. It should already be loaded. It should be good to go. And we want to say, okay, what provider are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the grocery item form provider. Boom, and just like that. So now we have this thing called form provider, which is literally just it's a reference to this whole package here. And you can actually see if I type form provider dot form, for instance. I probably can't. Wait, form provider. Well, let's just keep going. So instead of creating a form key here, we're going to use the key that we've made in this form provider. There we go. So we're getting the IntelliSense. See, we can see there's form, there's grocery item, is processing. Notice there's nothing with underscores. And in fact, I can't do handle update. It will only allow you to call things that you've declared in this abstract class. So this is going to be equal to .form. Awesome. Okay, and now it's done. Just kidding. Same with Validator. We can actually completely remove this code, and we can go form provider dot validate name, and we just want to do a reference to it. We don't actually want to call it. There we go. On changed, we'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so actually, yeah, no, I think we can do this now. So on change, what we want to do is we want to take our form provider dot set name, and we're going to equal to that value there. So basically, as we are typing stuff, it's going to be updating in the background this grocery item here, right? Because when we call set name, it's just setting the grocery item's name, and then there's this thing called handle update, which is our own function, which essentially at this time just does a notify listeners. Now, in order to actually be subscribing to these listeners, we need to do a couple other little things here. So in our init state of this class, and actually, sorry, let's get rid of this. We don't need him anymore. Let's just do an override of init state. Oops. Actually, wait, it was there. It's telling me stuff. We're going to do a super init state, and then we're going to, let's just make this should be the very first thing. And then that way we can say form provider dot add listener. So we're going to add a listener to our form provider, and we are going to call we're just going to basically call set state anytime a change happens. So anytime that notify listener happens, we're going to be changing state. Now there's a little bit of a weird thing that can happen here if I just did set state. If not everything's mounted, it can cause a crash. So there's a function we're going to actually make called set state if mounted. And all this is going to do, we're just going to check if mounted, which is a property of a stateful widget. We will then call set state, and we don't just want to generically call set state in case we use this in other spots. We're going to pass that in. That way I can go like this, and in this case, the state we're actually setting is nothing specific. We're just doing an update. So yeah, basically anytime we're subscribing to this, we will see that stuff changes. So let's test out to see if this is even working. So I'm actually going to let's just do best place to do this. Yeah, let's just put a maybe we'll do a let's just do a literally text here. Test 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, that should be within the children. And then let's just do a size box of height of 12. So there's a bit of spacing. We'll go here. We should see test 1, 2, 3. Now, instead of making this say test 1, 2, 3, let's just take our form provider dot grocery item dot name. So I'm just gonna go back here, and you'll see, boom, stuff is good. Now it's interesting. Look, it's still remembering that's a name, and that's because we're not telling, this form provider is always in memory. It's always accessible by all your components that are listening to it. So unless we purposely say, clear this out, it's going to stay in memory. So that especially helps if you're making an app where someone, needs to have some kind of like ability to create a draft and they click the X by accident. It's like, oh, good, it's still here. Okay, almost through this, so we can get rid, we know that's working. So we can get rid of that guy there. So we're doing our onChange. We have our validator. We need a save button. There will be some more. Things in here. We're gonna obviously want people to pick a category at the very least. Possibly some other stuff. But let's just get our save button working. So I'm going to, in our app bar, we can have actions, and let's just do an icon button on pressed. We'll just keep that empty for now. And icon will be icon. Oops. Icons dot, you know what? Let's screw icon button right now. Let's just use a flat button. Or no, it used to be called flat button. It's now called text button. And let's just say save, and that needs to be actually text. So we should see in, what? That's weird. Oh, it might not be, is it just a color issue? Style. Style, text style, colors dot white. Yeah, that's why I was just making it the orange, the default primary color, which makes sense. Okay, now our save button, text button, so we want to, let's just make a thing called handle save, and we will make that a void handle save, print save. There's some weird stuff happening with my colors here, I don't know. But let's just make sure that when we click that, we are getting save. Yep, there it is, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here is what we want to actually do when we handle save is, first of all, validate the form. So to do that, first of all, let's do even one thing first. Form provider dot is processing. We want to now return false, or just return out of this. Because if you're already, if it's already processing, meaning like you click save once, we don't want to keep like clicking save and making duplicates of things. Then what we want to do, assuming that didn't happen, we can go for form provider dot, I think we have save item, and that's what we're going to do there. And we'll be doing some other stuff, after this too. And in fact, our save item is gonna we'll just do this for now. Okay, now back in here in our save item, which we have not really done yet. First things first, we want to validate the form. So we should first go if form dot current state dot validate. So we're going to call the validate function. If not form dot current state, there we go. We need that there. Dot validate. And all we're going to do is do this, this dot handle update. So if it's not valid, stuff's going to happen. So let's just, before we do anything else, let's just see if that even does anything. So you'll see, and I'll just go clear. When we're calling this save item, it's calling this validate function, and then we need to also remember to return out of here. And in fact, let's make save item return a bool, so that over here we can essentially make something called success equals this, and then be able to do stuff with it. So we have future bool, but we also have to remember in our implementation, or in our where we declare everything, to also make it a bool. Cannot be returned the method data because it has a return type of future bool. Right. We also, let's just make this async so that it will do that. Okay. So now if I was to actually type something here, we would get we would not have that error in theory. Okay, yeah. Oh, we're getting, what are we getting now? Right. We're throwing, it's because we're still throwing this error, and because at the end we should return true if stuff, happens. Something weird with this text button. It's not, it doesn't feel like I'm clicking it, but I know I am. Because like it's obviously working here. Could be the way I did it. How do you Flutter scaffold app bar actions? So let's see how to do it with text. Answers you can wrap inside of alignment widget. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's what I did. Whatever. Okay. So cool. If it's valid, if it's not valid, it's going to return false. Otherwise, it continues and is still going to call this this handle update at the end. But really, what we end up needing to do here is actually what do I want to? Yeah, you know what? Okay, we got to change this again. I want to, when you do the save, we're actually going to return a grocery item, but we're going to allow it to also be null, which grocery item. Wait, how do I? Let me change this up here then. So save item, we want to return a grocery item from the save. So we have like an instance of it already saved. Oh, probably just have to do return null. Cannot be returned from save because it has a return type of grocery item. Future, it should be, I think that. Okay, cool. So let's just make sure that's exactly the same. And save item, question mark, grocery item. Okay, we're doing good here. So what we want to do is actually, now this is where we would do an actual API call. So let's do similar to what we did in our service. Let us await a delay of, we'll make it a little bit faster than that. Assuming this is true too, we also want to go set, I want to say is processing equals true. And I want to, at that point, actually handle an update so that we essentially can show like a progress indicator and that kind of stuff. So this will get called a few times in this, but that's totally fine. Then we're going to wait, and then essentially we would get, because we would hit our API, and we would get back an instance of a grocery item with an ID associated with it. So let's just make something for now temporarily. Grocery item equals this, and it's going to be a grocery item dot from JSON. And this code will also it's going to get removed because obviously it's going to be an API call, but we would be calling our service here and doing that stuff there. We might refactor that in a minute, but let's just pass in the stuff that we want. So we're not going to have a way to get really an ID. So I'm just going to do 99 or something. Name is another thing that we need, and we are going to just use, this dot item, grocery item. I'll use a private one, dot name. Category, and because we don't have a form to do this yet, let's just set it to grocery item category. Oh wait, this should be, I'm just gonna, again, this is temporary, so it doesn't really matter. We're just gonna, put this in the category called miscellaneous. I feel like there's one more thing. Yeah, is purchased is gonna be false. So we're essentially creating this new item by using our from JSON, because that's what we're ultimately going to have to be doing. And then we actually want to return new grocery item after this. We also want to say is processing equals false. After all this stuff happens, really, it can happen here, but it doesn't really matter. All this stuff's going to happen in one tick anyways, in one frame. Okay, so we return that. Then we can go back to our grocery item screen where instead of calling this success, we are going to call this new item. And let's just try printing new item. And let's just do a hard refresh because we made some big changes there. And let's just see what happens. Test 1, 2, 3. We'll probably get an error. Pretty close. Okay, handle an exception type null is not a subtype of bool. Awesome. Let's find out where that happened. In grocery item line 37. Ah, yes, I said is purchased. So what let's really like this should just be purchased. We should have remembered that. But to future-proof this in case there's a problem with our API, we should actually be going JSON purchase does not equal null. Then we want to grab that. Otherwise, we can just use the default of false. And we already kind of did something there for category. Okay, so if I click save, let's just get everything out of memory and restart this thing and test 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 7. And there we go, we got an instance of grocery item. Now we don't know what that grocery item is, so when we do that print that we're doing, let's just actually go .name. Future grocery, oh, right, okay. We actually got an instance back of a future because we actually, this never even ran, we have to actually await the result. And let's just print new item. Also, this has to be in an async now when we're calling save. So we're going to go like this. New item is awaiting whatever happens from there, and then we print new item. So let's just make sure we solve that. Click save, and we got grocery item. I clicked it twice because I was just too fast. Now see, I'm button mashing it. It's still only going up it's not going up as fast, and that's because we have that thing happening where if it's already processing, don't actually continue through. So that's great. We definitely want some feedback, but I do want to test to make sure new item dot name. Now we are going to get this because the grocery item can technically be false. So let's first of all say if new item does not equal null, and actually, yeah, then we can do this, and that should be fine. Else, this is where we want to to do show an error because it means there was some kind of error that happened. So let's just do this and click save, and we actually see we got the name back because we're printing name and everything is good. All right, one tiny little thing. Let's do something in this actions. In the case that, so we're going to have this action, and we are going to take our form provider dot is processing, and we're actually going to return something here like a sized box, width of 20, height of 20, 20, and it's going to have a child of a circular progress indicator. Now the problem is our progress indicator will be orange. Let's just get this all looking nice again. So to do that, you have to, I think it's value color. This is the thing I always forget. Value color, we have to use an always stopped animation using colors.white. Okay. So when it's processing, we're actually going to show, this thing here now. Oh, that did not look good. Why is that's so weird? Thought putting it in a sized box would solve that. Let me just get rid of these guys. Awesome. Not sure what's happening there. Yeah, I know I've done this before where you just put a size box around this thing so it doesn't get crazy, but it's doing this weird thing. Anyways, we will fix that at some point. but it's just, giving a little bit of feedback that, hey, stuff's happening. Um, cool. Okay, I think that is it for now. The next step is obviously going to be adding, a category, and then when you actually click save, we want to, come back to this screen and make sure that that new thing's in memory, et cetera, et cetera. All right, ta-ta for now.